All right, I believe we have some of the filmmakers in attendance with us. So if you are here and you're a filmmaker, come on up. All right. I'll just pass that mic down. All right. Let's first ask each of you just to introduce yourselves and tell us which one is your film.
Yeah, I'm Marlo Holden. I'm writer and actor and producer for Women and Elephants.
All right.
Hello, I'm Martin Tylicki, and I was the executive producer and one of the screenwriters for Hidden.
Okay.
I'm Scott Thomas. I was one of the actors in emotional support for Women and Elephants.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Arthur Eliav. I actually represent the director of the movie Sadakat, the Uzbek movie.
Okay.
So he wasn't able to attend, but I also helped him translate the subtitles into English. So.
All right. Thank you. All right, so we'll begin with Hidden. If you want to speak a bit about, how the film came to be, the inspiration behind it and whatnot.
Well, the inspiration is a little bit odd. It originally came from Stranger Things.
Okay.
Yeah, for those who are not familiar with Stranger Things, it's a very successful Netflix show, and the idea for the short film particularly came from the pilot of the show, where in the first season there is a teenage couple, Steve and Nancy, and the scene that inspired it was when Steve and Nancy are in her bedroom and he wants to be intimate, and she says, "What if my mom comes in?" And then he turns to the door and says, "I don't hear anything." And for some reason, that scene stuck with me, and I just asked myself, well, what if the mother did come in? How would that change the scene? And I just thought on it, and Hidden came up. So
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. All right. And let's talk a bit about the inspiration. If you want to just talk about kind of the concept where your project came from.
Yeah, out of the pandemic, getting locked in my apartment with my partner, who is also my fellow actor, and trying to get a hold on what it means to only have one other person witness your story, and kind of ruminating on what it means, like what we remember and what is true and what is not, and who we trust and why.
I literally remember I went on a day trip into the Hudson Valley because, that's what you do during the pandemic when you have a car. You try to get out of New York City. And when I came back, Marlo had written the entire script. So we'll offer that. And it was an opportunity, I think, to process for me as a performer, but also what I found so fascinating about the script is that the pandemic forced me, and I think a lot of people, to confront things that were coming up for them that you had not dealt with. And all the ghosts of our relationships past, our time on this planet past, they were trapped there too. So what's with you when you're holding someone else accountable for your narrative, or they're responsible for yours? How do you separate that from what's really going on, and can you, in fact? So that's part of the thing that I found so arresting about what Marlo wrote.
Well, Sadakat, as you saw, it's a foreign film. It's produced by my childhood friend, Ruslan Saliyev, and it's based on poetry of a great Uzbek poet, Abdullah Qadiri, who was actually himself a victim of the Stalinist purge in the 30s. And the idea of the film is to present to the world the rich history, poetry, music, and art of Uzbekistan, a Central Asian country that received its independence from Soviet Union with the breakup in the early 90s, and to really show the world what the country is about, its history, its traditions, and the music that you hear in the background. It's all traditional music, kind of remixed to modern tempo, but everything is very, very authentic, and it represents the endeavors of young, aspiring producers and directors to introduce the world to Uzbek film.
Does anybody have any questions for any of the filmmakers? Feel free to raise your hand if you have a question. What? Oh, yeah, go ahead. Women and elephants. Yeah.
Either way. No.
No, hey, okay.
Yeah, Marla, the color of the pill.
Color of the pill. If you see the film again, each day afterwards is tinted slightly to match the pill that came before. And part of that was I read, courtesy of Scott, I started forgetting things during the pandemic. I couldn't remember what had happened the night before. And so we would be talking and I'd be like, can you walk me through how we got to here? Because every day was the same. And so I started playing with the idea of, if you believed that you had some sort of technology, if you were taking something that someone had given to you like that, how might that impact, how might that distort your memory the next day? So it was trying to signify what it means to have like your memory shifted by someone else. So a riff on also Gaslight, which is something that I watched during the pandemic as well. And I was sitting there, I was like, it feels like this is happening on a global level instead of just individually. But yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Audience questions? Well, I just want to ask the filmmaker some of the challenges you faced, when making your films. Let's begin with Hidden.
So one of the challenges that we faced was we were all set to start casting, and then COVID hit. So we were postponed for about a year and a half, but it ultimately paid off. I mean, we managed to sue in the producer's house, which was Laura Sora, who played Maureen in the film. And yeah, as far as that was just challenges and, just trying to adapt to the COVID protocols that were newly established onto film sets, and just figuring out what we could do to help one another. This was also my first film, so it was a very big learning experience. But I learned a lot from everybody on set, not just my director, not just from Lauren, but just from the entire crew. And yeah, I mean, it was worth the wait, and it ultimately made the film better. So.
All right, thank you. And first, Sidika, what was the some of the challenges you faced?
If I may speak for the directors, I know that the challenges for them, for the director there is it's a foreign film, so breaking into to international audience, to make it relatable to people outside of the country, to like I said, to introduce really the film to international audience. I think especially with everything being shut down and the world being in turmoil as it is right now, so that's certainly not easy. Most people probably wouldn't be able to find Uzbekistan on the map, but it certainly deserves its rich culture. It certainly deserves to be on that map, and hopefully, gain more exposure, and then just really be able to reach out. I think that's really the ultimate goal, and that's the ultimate challenge for the directors there.
All right. And Marlon Scott, I believe Women and Elephants was shot during the pandemic, right? So I imagine that probably must have been one of the greatest challenges.
Yeah. You're like, oh, yes. Yes, definitely that. And also to take it away from COVID a little bit, space, because we're in New York City and we're trying to shoot in a small space. And I wrote the script with the idea that we could stay in the same space, thinking naively that we would all fit and it would be fine and it would be cheap, and that's never true. So we ended up renting the apartment above us to try and have some holding space for cast and crew. And it was our apartment, so I was like, oh, we'll just use it as it is. And then production design came in and they were like, no, we're gonna move all your furniture over here. We're gonna repaint everything. So we ended up living on set when everybody would go home, which was also odd. And trying to figure out how all of our furniture that wasn't necessary for the set could fit in closets, which was hilarious to try and navigate around.
And just my last question, I like to always ask the filmmakers, like, what's the main lesson you'd want the audiences to walk away from after seeing your film? So, Marla, I guess we'll begin with Women and Elephants.
Be skeptical of who you trust and think about why.
Just because there are people in your life who accept you, that doesn't mean you don't have to accept them, because sometimes they don't have to be there, but when the chips are down, you would ultimately want somebody to be there.
All right, well said. Scott, any additional thoughts on Women and Elephants?
Learn what you want love to look like for you and fight for that, not what you think it's supposed to.
Nice.
Love is really universal, and it's appreciated all over the world, regardless of the languages that we speak, regardless of the boundaries that separate us sometimes, and art can carry it over.
All right, thank you. All right, round of applause for Siddiqat, Hidden, and Women and Elephants. All right, thank you all. Congratulations to the filmmakers, and thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone.